Hello, Keith Walker speaking. This is the online lecture for week 9 to do with the entrepreneurship study. Excuse me, we've already had chapters 1 and 2, which have set a definition of what entrepreneurship is and also the opportunities of entrepreneurship. So now we move along to chapters 4, which is relating to the entrepreneurship and small business characteristics, and chapter 6, excuse me, which is the consideration and options for entrepreneurship inside businesses and things like that. Again, you can do the readings for yourself. There's no problems there. I just want to draw your attention to page 80, which is the small business definition. Now, you'll know from starting to look at your arousal simulation that the company that you're dealing with has 12 or 12 and a half staff from memory. And so you can see quite clearly that if you're in Australia, from page 80 of the text, you can see a small business is defined as between 5 and 19 people. What is also interesting, that particular page and that sheet also details a lot of other countries, particularly in the Asian area, Singapore, China, India, etc., and how they have slightly different definitions of business size and things like that. So very important because you're technically, I suppose, running a small business by the Australian definition. So that gives you a little bit of background for that. Page 83 gives you a little contrast there with the effects of between a small and large business. Every business that starts has to start small. It's just the way of the world. Nobody starts with a gigantic billion-dollar business. You all start small. So that's important. There's different issues. And the context here is just to give you those issues and give you some details on it so that you can read those for yourself and see what they might be. Obviously, as companies grow and become larger, issues change. And it's important that particularly, obviously, small businesses are quite vulnerable. That's by their nature. They start out and then they can, there's a very high percentage of failure. You know from your Peterson readings that the construction industry has a very high percentage of failure. And you know that one of the specific reasons for that is the lack of financial control. But also obviously failing to adapt to your environment, not staying up with trends, not keeping ahead of your competition. There's a myriad of things that you need to factor in. Entrepreneurship, the idea of entrepreneurship is an advantage that a company can take on board for itself. It can think of a better way of doing things. A better way of doing things means hopefully you're more competitive, your profit margins improved, etc. So you can become a better construction company. Page 93 details the page 93 is global significance. You can see there table 4.3. It lists micro businesses, small business, medium business, large businesses across Europe, UK and the USA. You can see the large numbers of people from there and the percentages allocated. That shows you how important the businesses are across the world. That's just to put it in the world context. Everybody is seeking an entrepreneurial advantage. It's a buzzword at the moment for a lot of areas, particularly in the political area. But the reality is, anybody that's thinking about their business, looking to make improvements and looking to make changes, has an opportunity to stay ahead of things. Hopefully you had a look at that little video clip from last week, which was the landline case, which considered a very simple product, carrots. But reality was what they did, they moved carrots from $5 a kilogram to $50 a kilogram. That's a tenfold increase in the price of their carrots, which is pretty basic. So I think the advantage of their business model they had was that they used that initially for waste carrots, ones that were nothing wrong with them, they were just funny shapes and the supermarkets didn't want them. So they had an enormous value to that. But the advantage of that model was too, if it takes off, you can use all your carrots for that model. So instead of being a $5 a kilogram business, you can turn it into a $50 a kilogram business. All you need is the amazing growth. I thought that was a rather sort of, it just shows you how it can be just such a simple idea. Now, that landline thing did include the risk factor. They invested millions of dollars in the equipment. Nobody was doing it, so they had to effectively go out and do it for themselves. You've read the characteristics of an entrepreneur. They take risks. They create things. They don't wait for somebody to tell them there's a demand for it. They think they know what they're able to do, and they go ahead and push into it and take chances. So and that's a global significance because they've subtly improved that. Now, obviously, a food product like that getting exported is a bit tricky, but it gives you an example how it's such a simple idea, although investing millions of dollars to make the machinery, suddenly improved the productivity of that particular industry and those particular farmers. All right, so that takes care of the first chapter. The second chapter is chapter 6. What I sort of want to draw attention to there is on page 128, issues to consider before going into business. This is a little bit about what you need to consider before you're going into business. Now, what you will see is a lot of things in there that you've already sort of started to factor into your strategic plan. Now, you guys are not getting a choice. You are in business. We put you in a construction company, so that's it. But it's an interesting chapter. There's not a lot of pages there. I've only highlighted 5.5 odd pages for you to read, but it's interesting to read. It gives you a little bit of context. I particularly draw your attention to page 132, cash flow shortage. Cash flow shortage. You know that cash flow, cash management, etc. in construction companies is a vital aspect that's often overlooked. You know, it's often the reason for construction companies to fold and fail. Particularly because of the nature that a construction company needs continuous tendering, continuous workflow to stay viable. So that's only a few pages to read. I hope you enjoy those. It gives you a little bit of context of of where we're going and what businesses need to consider. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you. Bye.